A man named Teihei has a younger sister who is very beautiful and popular. In addition to being kind and smart, she is also very talented, so she is liked by many people. However, when he is at home, his sister Yumaru turns into a very lazy figure. Her selfish nature often causes problems and makes her brother inconvenient. One day at dinner, Yumaru asks her brother to buy her favorite comics. Because the request is not obeyed, Yumaru forces him while whining and rolling on the bed like a child. Yumaru even cried and shouted loudly so that her brother was forced to obey her. After her request was granted, she was also ungrateful and even ignorant. The next day, Yumaru went to school because her eyes were red. People were curious about what happened to her, so Yumaru told them that she had a fight with her brother at her house last night. Yumaru has 2 hamsters. It has been 6 months since she kept them. Her brother still remembers when Yumaru wanted to buy a hamster for her. At that time, Yumaru acted like a lonely child, so other people pressured her brother to buy for her. When going to school, every student notices Yumaru, who looks perfect. Apart from her appearance, which makes her look like an artist, the students admire her talent in all subjects. In addition, her very kind and unarrogant nature makes people idolize Yumaru. Her brother cannot protest her idle attitude because Yumaru can get perfect exam scores. When Yumaru stared out the window, people assumed she was thinking about something extraordinary. In fact, she was just thinking about what snacks she would eat at home by combining various foods and soft drinks. She spent her free time lazing around until she was satisfied. Then, when her brother prepared the food she had asked for earlier, Yumaru could not eat it because her stomach was full. On holidays, Yumaru plays games with her brother. When her brother remembers he has to go shopping at the supermarket, Yumaru follows him. While getting angry initially, Teihei doesn't understand what makes his sister angry. When they return home, he remembers that they have promised to play games together all day. For that, Teihei returns to invite her to play so that Yumaru becomes cheerful again. Working all day already makes Teihei feel tired. Plus he has to face his younger sister, but this time it's a little different from usual because her friend plays at home. Yumaru no longer troubles her brother like the previous days. In addition, her room, which usually looks messy, is now very neat. Abina is Yumaru's friend, and she lives in the apartment next door. After seeing what happened today, Teihei allowed Abina to play there anytime. Then, when Abina returned home, Yumaru returned to her usual behavior, but Teihei did not scold her, so she was motivated to clean her room alone. When he found out all her belongings were stored in the toilet, he immediately scolded her. During the holidays, Yumaru deliberately wakes her tired brother to accompany her to play. Because her request had not been heard, Yumaru tried to make him uncomfortable by sleeping beside him, but she fell asleep. Yumaru took her brother out for a walk to get something she wanted. However, Yumaru left him queuing alone and went to a different place instead of participating in the event. By chance, Teihei faced Abina because Teihei won the prize. He decided to give it to Abina. Meanwhile, to overcome Yumaru, who wanted the prize, she had to buy it with her own money. When she took her brother to buy groceries, Yumaru smiled. Her brother already knew his sister's true intentions, so he would not relent if Yumaru asked for something while whining in front of many people. By chance, they met Abina, who was shopping, so his sister would restrain herself. Teihei took advantage of the opportunity by treating her to food. Unfortunately, Yumaru did not give up so easily. She kept whining, asking to buy games when Abina was not paying attention to them. Abina does not realize Yumaru because she is focused on food. Previously, Abina lived in the countryside, so she behaved carefully so as not to be considered a village girl. But even though she didn't do anything, people always looked at her. It turned out that it was all because her posture was too striking. Only Teihei did not focus on it, so Abina often misbehaved when she met him. Soon, there will be a test. Sylphie challenges Yumaru to get the highest score on the test. While Yumaru didn't think about it the day before the test, she was even lazy by playing shooting games. However, when she started to realize and worry about her score, Yumaru immediately asked her brother to teach her. As a result, Yumaru won first place with a perfect score. Since the first test day, Kiri has noticed Yumaru secretly because her gaze is cold. People began to assume that Kiri didn't like Yumaru. Then, when Yumaru was lazing around, Kiri suddenly came to her house. At that time, she could only surrender, but fortunately, Kiri did not notice it and instead assumed that she was Yumaru's younger sister. After paying attention to her behavior, Yumaru realized that Kiri was just shy. The reason she often noticed her was to find an opportunity to return her lost student card. Therefore, Yumaru hid her true nature by pretending to be Kamaru. Kiri still pays attention to Yumaru during swimming lessons, although they have often met lately. Kiri had not realized that the girl who often talked to her was Yumaru. On a different day, Yumaru approached Kiri by herself. In addition, she also invited them to go home together, so Kiri was happy and could not say anything. However, Abina looked slightly disappointed and decided to avoid her on a different day because she was also there. Yumaru watched a horror movie with her brother. During the movie, Yumaru looks very scared because she does not want to admit it, so when her brother comes out, Yumaru panics and becomes even more frightened. After school, Yumaru was challenged to play in the Ding Dong Arena. When she arrived there, she immediately made the officer alert. He is already known as a genius player who can conquer all kinds of games so that all his prizes are not taken. The officer had prepared something on the claw machine, but Yumaru found the flaw in getting the prize so easily. Then, after successfully getting the prize, Yumaru approached the officer and asked them to put the prize she was after. The officer could not refuse her request because Yumaru had managed to melt him. Thus, Yumaru could get various dolls in large quantities, and she immediately took them home satisfactorily. The next day, Yumaru took tennis lessons. Even though she was an athletic student, she didn't like it and wanted to be lazy immediately. Unfortunately, Sylphie challenged her to a match. She even prepared a special field so she could compete optimally. Even so, Yumaru was not serious about facing it, so the match was in vain. He had just received a special gift from his coworkers, and before leaving, he warned Yumaru not to damage it. Still, Yumaru instead played it to accidentally damage it as a student who got high marks in art class. She has her own way so as not to be scolded by her brother, and in addition to repairing it, it turns out that she can also recreate the original style of her craft. Unfortunately, all efforts failed because she couldn't remember the original pattern of her craft. Ultimately, Yumaru admitted her mistake and apologized to her brother. Teihei forgave his sister's mistake. When Yumaru received an invitation to the game tournament, she immediately invited her brother to see the tournament. Arriving at the game area, Yumaru managed to surprise her brother because she participated in playing as a powerful player with the designation UMR. But Yumaru did not think she would fight her classmate Sylphie, who was quite skilled in playing the game. If Sylphie had not run away from her brother, who came to watch, Yumaru might have lost to her. At the semester's end, Yumaru again got the highest score, which made Sylphie even more motivated and eager to beat her. Then, during summer vacation, Yumaru used her time off to play. While playing, she met Sylphie by chance. When they met, Yumaru immediately wore a mask, so Sylphie thought of her as UMR. For Sylphie, Yumaru is the rival she really wants to beat. But before that, Sylphie felt that she had to win from UMR because, in the past, she had run away when she competed against her. Although UMR had mastered almost all the games in that place, Sylphie could win easily, even though it was the first time she had done it. When at home, Yumaru again showed her true nature. She really enjoyed her time off by being lazy. She even fell asleep because Kiri always pampered her when Yumaru fell asleep. Kiri couldn't resist wanting to take a photo of her, but she didn't have time to do it, so she accompanied her to lie down. The moment was enough to make Kiri happy. As a true gamer, Yumaru could not miss playing even a little. Even though she was in the shower, she still played games while enjoying the snacks she had prepared. That way, she could unwind after a day of activities. But all of that was still insufficient to satisfy and overcome her. She immediately prepared a cola and then drank it after bathing. As a teenage girl, Yumaru doesn't have much of a collection of clothes. When she realizes it, Teihei gives her money so Yumaru can shop for clothes with her friends. While shopping, Abina becomes a little different. She is usually quiet and turns into an active child, while Kiri is still shy, so she can't get along with Abina. Then, after trying on some clothes, they split up to choose the clothes she likes, but when going to buy them, Yumaru thinks of something else. She feels she doesn't need good clothes and uses her money to buy the latest game tapes. One night, Teihei told Yumaru to go to bed on time. However, because she had slept after school, Yumaru was not sleepy and preferred to stay up late. When her brother fell asleep secretly, she ate a snack while playing games. Then, when she discovered that her drink supply had run out, Yumaru had no choice but to buy it. In the end, Yumaru stayed up all night when she went to school while her brother was still at home to take the summer vacation that had previously been postponed. Teihei did not remember the activities often carried out at home before Yumaru lived with him. Instead of staying lazy, he planned to cook a dish that took a long time. While waiting for it to cook, Teihei accidentally fell asleep until Yumaru had to wake him up. Then, in the evening, Teihei prepared documents for the meeting. Because Yumaru often bothered him, he thought of installing curtains so they could have their own private space even though there was no barrier. Yumaru didn't mind it but agreed with the idea so she could be lazy without being scolded by her brother for a moment. The two of them had achieved their goal. However, because she was not used to it, Yumaru looked lonely, so Teihei decided to open it again. September 26th is Yumaru's birthday. Even so, when her classmates gave gifts, her brother acted casually as if he didn't know it. Yumaru began to suspect that her brother was planning something. Therefore, she immediately went home early to see her brother's reaction when her birthday surprise idea was discovered. When her brother was cleaning the house, Yumaru threw another tantrum by ordering her brother to do the same. Then, shortly after her brother threw away the box of figures lying on the floor, Yumaru asked about it even though previously she had allowed it to be thrown away after remembering that Yumaru didn't want to make an issue of it anymore. When she saw her brother who was panicking, Yumaru couldn't stand to tease him by mentioning that the discarded object was very important to her. With this reason, Yumaru managed to make her brother feel guilty so that she could be lazy. But when her brother went out and Yumaru was alone, Yumaru was afraid of being abandoned by her brother and regretted her previous actions. The next day, Abina invited Yumaru and Teihei to eat outside. The invitation made Yumaru look happy because when she was at home, she was prohibited from eating carelessly, while Abina worried they would not like the food there. One night, Teihei's coworker Matoba suspected that Teihei was living with his girlfriend even though Teihei said he was living with his sister. Matoba did not believe it because office people saw him walking with a beautiful girl. To confirm the truth, Matoba decided to follow Teihei and visit his house. Then he met Yumaru, who was sleeping in his idler form. This way, the misunderstanding between them could be resolved, but Teihei could not let Matoba stay at his house for long because little Yumaru had caught his attention. On a different day, Silphai invited UMR to visit a hawker stall. UMR then took her to a hawker stall she had known about 6 months ago. Even though the guard was not there, they rarely knew about many snacks. After deciding on the items to buy, they shouted as loud as possible until the shopkeeper heard. In the afternoon, Teihei got lost on a road that was familiar to him at first. He thought he had walked there with Yumaru, but after remembering it, he realized it was his mother. A few days before the new year, the snow started falling. On this occasion, Yumaru intended to enjoy the fun by playing games all day, but when her brother said he would bring out the warming table, Yumaru was immediately excited to help her brother tidy up the room. Then, when the warming table was prepared, Yumaru immediately jumped up to play games and eat snacks under it. But because the table was too comfortable, she immediately fell asleep. On Christmas Eve, many people celebrate outside the house, while Yumaru intends to stay inside and eat cake with her brother. Unfortunately, her brother has to work overtime on Christmas Eve, which makes Yumaru look lonely because she has no one to accompany her. Not long after that, suddenly someone rings the doorbell. When checked, it turned out to be Kiri and her brother. Kiri intended to give Yumaru a gift but happened to meet her brother. At the end of the road on New Year's Eve, Yumaru gathered with her brother and workmates. She intended to stay up all night and count down until sunrise. At that time, Matoba had prepared a large amount of beer because this year, Yumaru Teihei was not participating in drinking it. Meanwhile, Yumaru had prepared special drinks for herself. She bought various types of soft drinks and snacks even though she originally intended to stay up late. However, because she was overrated, Yumaru slept early. Yumaru, the most memorable thing in the new year was being able to laze around as much as possible. However, because she promised to clean up her room a few weeks ago, her brother scolded her and demanded the promise. Yumaru had no choice but to obey. But before doing it, her brother invited her to visit the temple first. While near the temple, Teihei asked Yumaru if she wanted to wear yukata, but it turned out that Yumaru was not interested in wearing it and was more concerned with fortune-telling paper. After that, they then proceeded to pray at the temple. Kiri tried to make homemade cakes secretly to strengthen their relationship with her friends. Her brother watched from behind, and when he found out that his sister was making cakes, Matoba wondered why she was making cakes when she didn't have friends. But because Kiri didn't tell him why, Matoba left her as if he knew what she meant. Meanwhile, Kiri couldn't wait to give the cake to Yumaru, but because she was too focused on thinking about Yumaru, the cake burned, so she had to make it again. Besides that, because her brother thought the cake was for him, he ate it instead, so Kiri had to make it repeatedly. The next day, Kiri would give it to Yumaru, but because she was too excited, she ignored her footsteps, which made her fall. Even so, Kiri was still happy because Yumaru was still willing to accept it. Besides Yumaru, she had also prepared a special cake for Kamaru and her brother, but again, she was careless and gave the burnt cake to her brother, Yumaru. Abina had just bought the ingredients to make homemade chocolate then. When she was about to make it together with Yumaru, Yumaru immediately called her brother to come to her kitchen because she was used to cooking. Teihei was very helpful to both of them, but because Abina wanted to give him the chocolate, she misbehaved and could not continue her plan. Yumaru returned to visit the play area together with Sylphie. Meanwhile, when Teihei was alone at home, Kiri suddenly arrived without a prior appointment. On that occasion, Teihei thanked her for the cake she had previously given. In response, Kiri even looked angry and seemed to want to do something to him. After a few hours passed, Kiri began to speak up. She apologized for giving him a burnt cake and intended to give him a new one, because she fell asleep while playing games when the air conditioner was on. Yumaru caught a fever even though the pain was not too severe. Yumaru hoped to be pampered and cared for by her brother, but this wish was not achieved. It happened because her brother was more concerned with work than his sister. Because of this, Yumaru became annoyed with her brother, so her brother would worry more if she did something to worsen her illness. However, it has only been a day since Yumaru fully recovered while her brother has a fever, which makes Yumaru excited to find out that her brother has a fever. Yumaru immediately contacted the office so her brother would not work since today was a school holiday. Yumaru asked her brother not to worry because she would care for him. However, she seems to have other intentions because he has been left alone when sick. Yumaru plans to repay him by giving him spicy food, but when Yumaru returns home, she immediately panics because her brother's condition is worse than she thought. Therefore, she finally decided to care for him as best she could. Lately, Yumaru is often picky about food. She forbids her brother to add vegetables to her lunch. Then, when Abina tells her that making vegetables like that requires more energy, Yumaru comes to her senses and prevents her brother from preparing vegetables for her anymore. Because of her carelessness, Yumaru accidentally wet the device, which cut off her internet connection. Without the internet, Yumaru could not do anything. Therefore, while waiting for repairs, she decided to spend her time at the internet cafe. Even though the place was small, the facilities provided were practically complete. Besides being able to surf as much as possible, Yumaru got free drinks and could read comics that fit her heart's content. For Yumaru, it was the most comfortable place. She was so relaxed that she thought she could stay there forever. But she had only been bored for a few hours, even though the rental time was still long. In the end, she chose to go home. One day, Yumaru whined to her brother about buying pizza, but not long after, Abina visited her house to give her rice from her hometown. Teihei received it happily, and because they heard Abina's stomach rumbling, Teihei decided to invite her to eat together in this way. Yumaru had no choice but to restrain herself from eating pizza while eating together. Abina suddenly spoke in her native accent. This embarrassed Abina because Yumaru and her brother were watching her. In addition, because Abina also looked hungry, Yumaru took advantage of the opportunity to buy pizza from her brother. On a different day, Teihei attended a big meeting to present his proposal. Yumaru thought her brother's proposal would be rejected. Therefore, she decided to look for something at the convenience store to cheer up her brother. However, it turned out that out of many employees, her brother's proposal was accepted by the company. Therefore, her brother thought Yumaru gave him the snack to celebrate his success. During the rainy season, Yumaru became lazier than usual. She did not want to play or eat and just wanted to lie on the floor. Besides, Yumaru Kiri also experienced the same thing. The rainy season made her remember the experience that traumatized her until now so they could be cheerful again. Teihei tried to encourage her by telling her the advantages of rain. Still, because they did not understand it, he motivated them by taking her to the beach in the summer, because she didn't want to get hot. Yumaru was not interested in going to the beach, but considering she could enjoy ice during the summer, Yumaru and Kiri were excited and couldn't wait to welcome summer. Then, when summer arrived, Yumaru and her brother went for a walk together. Besides her brother, Yumaru also had time to play with Sylphie and Abina, but Yumaru preferred staying home while enjoying ice cream with Kiri. She even bought a cooler and box without permission from her brother. When she saw a car advertisement, Yumaru encouraged her brother to buy a car because he already had a driver's license and had promised to take his sister to the beach. Teihei also decided to look at the car first. Yumaru wants to have a private car for vacations and to always be delivered by her brother. While lazing in the car, Yumaru advised her brother to buy a big car, but when he tried his free driving test, Teihei was very depressed because he was not used to driving on public roads. After knowing this, Yumaru felt sorry for her brother. Ultimately, they decided to take a vacation to the beach using his work friend's car only. The day before the vacation, Yumaru had prepared a lot of equipment. Then, the next day, they gathered in front of the house and were ready to leave. Kiri was suddenly surprised because it turned out that their driver was her brother Kiri, but Matoba did not realize that it was his sister. Instead, he focused on paying attention to Yumaru because it was the first time he saw her beautiful mode. During the trip, Kiri looked a little moody. Going with Yumaru did make her happy, but she was also worried about Kamaru because no one had informed her. After some time, they arrived at Inosama Island. The island has amazing natural beauty. Even Kiri forgot about her problems and looked at the sea on the island without blinking. On that occasion, Kiri asked Yumaru why Kamaru hadn't come. Yumaru wanted to tell her that Kamaru was her only personality, but for fear of disappointing Kiri, Yumaru said that Kamaru could not come because of sudden business. This way, Kiri will no longer worry about it and can enjoy her vacation. Coincidentally, their classmate Sylphie was also there. They also chose to play together until they were satisfied.